Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Scratch Golf Show. Today we have another great interview lined up for you. We have our second guest from the UK. We have Tom from Flushing at Golf. We had a great conversation. We discussed a number of different topics today. We discussed Tom's views on the golf professional landscape. We discussed his thoughts around the US Open. We discussed his thoughts on Bryson and what he does for the game, as well as a few different things that Tom's been able to do since starting his own golf podcast. Like I said, I'll make sure I link all his socials in the description. I really hope you guys enjoy the conversation. If you do, subscribe, leave a comment, like, and like I said in our last video, make sure you leave a comment on some future guests that you'd like me to interview. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Like I said, make sure you follow Tom on all of his socials, and make sure you guys subscribe. Thanks. Hey guys, another edition of the Scratch Golf Show here. We have another great guest for us. We have Tom from across the pond from Flushing at Golf. Tom was famously the first person who broke the John Rahm to Live story. If you're not following him on social medias, make sure you follow me at Flushing at Golf on at least X and Instagram is what I follow him. He also does a podcast on Spotify. But Tom, thank you, or I said Flushing it. Thank you for coming on the Scratch Golf Show, man. Thank you for the time this morning.
Thanks for the invite, Marco. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Like I said, guys, Tom has done similar to what I like to do is grow the Scratch Golf Show and grow a brand. He's done a ton of great work. So like I said, make sure you follow him across all socials. Do you do any YouTube or anything, Tom, or is it just Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, any other socials that the people should follow you on?
I mean, Instagram and Twitter. I've got Facebook, but it just auto posts from Instagram.
Okay.
I've started dabbling with Threads, but nothing else. Yeah, not like YouTube.
Cool. Well, like I said, guys, check him out on Spotify podcasts. Just Flushing It podcast. It does some great conversations. Famously, he had Bryson DeChambeau, U.S. Open on as his first guest. He's done some great stuff with Colton Oast and some other live players as well. So like I said, make sure you check that out and leave him a rating on Spotify. All right, Tom, what's up, man? Thank you for joining. Like I said, I got some questions. I know we just talked offline, but to start, what is the reason? What made you decide to do Flushing at Golf? Tell the people a little bit about behind the story behind the brand.
Yeah, it's a good question. So it started up that I had two young kids. I wasn't playing a lot of golf anymore, and I wanted to stay sort of connected to the sport. So I set up a meme account, really. So it was originally called UK Golf Memes, and I used to just literally post memes and just like
awesome.
something funny, just post and just sort of like see what happened and just do it for a laugh.
Yeah.
And then, I kind of like let that go for a bit, and I realised, I love golf. I'm so obsessed with it. I wanted to start talking about it. So I started posting a bit more sort of about stories and things that I noticed, and people seemed to engage with that. So I thought, you know what, maybe I'll just completely rebrand and start talking about golf, and here we are. So yeah, it's taken off.
How did you come up with the name Flushing? I love the name. I mean, that's a great name, but it's just something you're just sitting in the back of your car and you're just like, yeah, I got this name for my social media brand now.
Yeah. Well, I actually wanted to I originally thought about calling it Flushers Golf.
Okay.
Because it's just a term that everyone uses, right? You're a flusher.
Yeah, right.
Good. And I set up a Twitter account with not my original UK Golf Memes one, just called Flushers Golf. And then I lost the password. So I had to think of another name. And I was like, wow, what's close to that? So we just came out with Flushers. I think it's brilliant. It kind of sums everything up perfectly, really. So
yeah, for sure, man. Like I said, you've done great work. You've really grown your following over, at least when I started following you, I know now you're, I think, over 70,000 on Twitter alone. Over 20,000 on Instagram. It's awesome. Like I said, I ran into your account. I don't know if it was last year or what. I think it was the live event in Florida, maybe. I can't remember. But regardless, like I said, I'm a big fan. I love what you've done with the podcast. How has your life changed since starting Flushing It? Like, is this something you do full time, or what does that look like?
It hasn't changed a great deal, to be honest. Apart from the fact I go occasionally to cover some events, like I went to Macau to like cover an Asian tour event. I've been to a couple of live events, obviously. I assume that's going to keep growing. I expect more invites to go to different places. But I mean, I still do my same job. Like, nothing's changed. There's no money involved in this at all, really, apart from the pennies that you get from Twitter. Having the blue check mark. That's literally the only money I get. So I just do it out of pure passion.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the grind. Like I said, you have grown your brand so much, and like I said, ideally, I'd love to be where you were. So talk to me a little bit. I know you did go to the Asian Tour event in Macau. Talk to me a little bit about that. Was that your first event covering, or was that like one of the coolest experiences? Just talk to the people a little bit about the Asian Tour event and what you did covering in that Macau.
Yes, my very first event I went to actually was live in Valderrama last year, live Andalusia, and I went there for the tournament days. And then to Centurion Club and covered that extensively for the whole week. And then obviously, because it's not my job, I then just went back doing my work. Then I had the opportunity to go to Macau and I really wanted to see what the Live Golf Investments was doing into the international series and for Asian golf. So they suggested that it might be a good one for me to go to. So I went out and sort of saw it firsthand, or like met with players which I've been following for a long time on the Asian tour, like young TK from Thailand, who's like I think 17 now. He's an absolute talent. See how Liv has helped him in his career. I'm like speaking to some of the regular Asian Tour players like Travis Smythe, who's an absolute legend as well. Like how much it helped him having players come over from Liv and the money that's gone into the prize funds. And I just wanted to see it for myself, and I was blown away. I just think it's exceptional, and golf in that region, especially, is going to continue to grow. I think.
Yeah, is that who won that event? Was that John Catlin or was that David Puig?
Yeah, it was Catlin beat Puig in the playoff, and he shot the first ever 59 on the Asian Tour, so I got to see that in person, which is just unreal timing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, dude, that's an awesome experience. That's got to be such a cool experience. Like you said, we don't, I don't do. Obviously, I don't get paid from this, and it doesn't sound like like you said, you don't make a ton of money from either. It's just cool as a fan to kind of go through and experience that. Like, I didn't get my college degree in media, right? Like we're doing this as just golf fans, so that's got to be awesome. And John Cantlin is now in on the Crushers, right? Subbing for Bryson's team. Charles Howell injured, so he's stepping in, getting another good opportunity this week for Live Golf Nashville. But that's awesome, man. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Jon Rahm to Live scoop. Famously, I know you were the first one to break it. At least that's what I saw. I know none of the mainstream media, at least over here in the States, gave you credit, but I will give you the credit that you most rightfully deserve, that you were the first one on that story about a week before anyone else. But what does that look like on the back end? Like how did you come about that scoop? And obviously I don't want you to reveal your sources, but just talk to me a little bit about that process and how it ended up, you ended up, I guess, getting that information.
It's a good question. It was a very sort of long, drawn out process, actually. And I think you are definitely right. I was 2 weeks ahead, and I had everything right the whole stage of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And, it came up at the DP World Tour Championship. A few guys which I know in media had said that one of the European Tour officials had been saying they're really worried that Jon Rahm was going to go to Live. So it rang alarm bells to me straight away. And I mean, you can credit those guys with the scoop, I guess, because they had it first. But you then start trying to find out whether it's true or not. So obviously I'm very well connected within Live now. I know a ton of players. So I just started asking questions, and there was a couple of people in particular who were like, they are absolutely in talks and it's very close. So I posted that and said, Jon Rahm is in talks and it's close. Then about 10 days later, I had the official confirmation from both sides. So one from Liv and one from Rahm's side, who had absolutely confirmed that he was definitely moving. So I posted about that. And then 2 weeks later, it came out and it was true. So I think people didn't even believe it up until it was actually. It was such a big deal. Like when I started talking about Live transfer rumours, like back in 2022, I used to post a lot of stuff which I just heard as hearsay, and it turned out to be right. But then I realised, there's no point just putting stuff out there that you haven't backed up.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure with this Jon Rahm story that I was 100% correct before posting about it. And I was, and it was just an unreal experience.
Man, that's awesome. Like I said, you're like the mini Adam. I don't know if you know who Adam Schefter is over there, but you're like mini Adam Schefter. Like I said, I've been following you for a long time. I know that I will give you the proper credit. So I know the no laying up or the mainstream media over here didn't, but I will personally give you credit because, like I said, I know you're on your shit. Is Rahm, and this is a question that came up, but is Rahm anytime Rahm coming on the Flushing at Pod soon? That would be a huge gift for you.
I don't have any contacts directly to him, unfortunately. Maybe if I speak to him a little bit.
Fair enough, man. Okay, I'm not going to ask you to break any news, but I have to ask because we just talked about it. And have you heard anything about any future player movement? I know, obviously, you had the Rory to Live when I recorded with Ben a couple months ago around the Masters time. But anything updated on any player movement? Whether it's now or future that you've heard that you could share with us here on the Scratch Golf Show.
With the Rory to Live thing was interesting because all I did was share an article and say that people at Masters have been talking about it. I didn't actually. I never said that I thought he was going, but it obviously blew up. But I can't see Rory going anytime soon. But I think at some point he probably will. You have to look at where do you think the world of golf is going right now, and if you look at that press release recently, I think it gives you a lot of clues. And I think that you're going to end up with a world tour, which will be Live. And then the PGA Tour stays like insular, looking at the United States market with the TV windows and stuff, and then work amongst themselves so they don't directly compete in big weeks. And I think that Rory could end up on Live then, but he'll still play the PGA Tour. But I think there'll be crossover. Sure. I think that's what he wants. I think that's what everybody wants. I think
Yeah.
moving back and forth between the tours. I wouldn't rule any player out. I think there's like pretty much everyone could play on Live at some point.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I want to talk a little bit about the landscape in professional golf, but that sounds like, I mean, that's what I want. You know, I'm a golf fan. I grew up watching golf. I do like it now that, you know, for me, I don't really care. Like, I used to not like Live. Like, I'll be honest with you, first season wasn't a huge fan, but now, like, the product's grown on me. For me, the ROM was really the domino, but like, there's two great golf tours. Like, I'm not going to complain. Like, not everything has to be Live versus PGA Tour, and that's the problem with today's society.
100%.
That like everything has to be like either you're on one side or the other. It's like, no, I'm just in the middle, giving my opinion, and I just love golf. Like, I'm going to watch golf if there's two free events to watch as long as I can. They both have great players. Like, Live, in my opinion, it's very top loaded. There's a lot of the top players, you know, the DJs, the Koepkas, Cam Smiths. They've obviously done a ton of damage taking players from the PGA Tour, but at the end of the day, like, it's still great golf. So let's hear your thoughts. Like, what are your thoughts on the current landscape of professional golf? And I guess, where do you see it going ideally? I know you just talked about the World Tour, but what are your thoughts on the state of the game as it is right now?
I just think that this disruption was completely necessary. And that obviously there's a lot of hostility, but a lot of that's been directed by certain talking heads in the media. And you listen to them now, they're still doing it. Like I listened to a very famous podcast earlier that were talking about how they think Bryson's completely disingenuous and inauthentic. And it's just bullshit. Like he's a top guy. Like he genuinely just wants to be liked. And whether you think that the fact he wants to be liked is inauthentic, it's not. But a lot of that like narrative about the division is been forced by certain people in media.
Yeah.
And I think this was essential. And you had to have the disruption because the PGA Tour was such a monopoly that they didn't ever want someone to take the power away. Yeah. So you had to have somebody like a public investment fund with billions of dollars to spend, and someone like Greg Norman who just didn't give a shit about what people said. To come in and push it through. And now like they've got through that disruption phase. We're now in the right, let's see what the future of golf looks like. And I strongly believe that in 5 to 10 years, we'll look back on this period and see that it was absolutely necessary and the sport will be in a much better place.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I just had Willie Wilcox on. I'm not sure if you know who he is, Sungjae Im's caddy. Yeah. I just recorded with him on Tuesday, dropped it yesterday. He had said the same thing. Like, a lot of the media, like, rumors is kind of bullshit. Like, he's like, these guys still like each other. Like, they're high-fiving. Absolutely. They talk all the time. Like, a lot of the drama and BS has been media created, which I'm not surprised. Like, that's just how we live in today's society in general. Every media talking head tries to stir up drama, but it's just funny to hear from somebody who was on the grounds at the US Open last week that, like, this is kind of just bullshit, man. Like, these guys are still friends. There's no disdain. Like, at the end of the day, it's a great time to be in pro golf because all the prize pools are juiced, even for caddies, right? Caddies, I mean, Ted Scott's making like $1 million freaking dollars, man. It's a great time to be in pro golf. Anyway,
I think it is absolutely essential that people who have different opinions do these interviews and chats together. Not saying you have a different opinion to me, but like the interview I did with Colt Knost, I really wanted to do that, and he was really keen too because obviously I'm super positive about Live, and I get seen by the PGA Tour side to be like a Live bot or whatever. Some of the Live guys think that Colt Knost is like super the other way and hates Live, and it was important to get together and discuss our like differences and see that there is a lot of common ground there, and it doesn't have to be polarizing opinions. And I hope that more people do that sort of going forward and realize we're just golf fans.
Yeah, exactly right. Like I said, not everything has to be like, pitchforks. Grab your pitchforks, grab your lighters. Like, let's go, wreck someone who doesn't have our same opinion. It's okay to find a middle ground, and you don't have to be an asshole about it. You can just be like, look, I see that your opinion is your opinion. You're allowed to have it. And at the end of the day, I may not agree, but at the end of the day, we can still have a cool conversation. We're still going to be friendly. 100%. It is what it is. And that's a problem in today's society. You just talked about it, kind of leading into my next question. You do the podcast, right? Like I said, Flushing It Podcast on Spotify. You've done a ton of great interviews. You just touched on Colt Knost, like I said, Bryson. I know you've had Taylor Gooch, Chikara, a ton of players on. Talk to me a little bit about that. How do you go about setting those up? And like I said, it's good to have those chats, but just talk to me a little bit about that. And then I'll have another question about Bryson, but let's just hear how you set up your podcast and how you go about getting those big guests on.
Yeah, I mean, I never wanted to do a podcast, to be honest, because I didn't really want my face out there. I just kind of do it for fun. And then it was like, well, somebody said to me, you've got all these contacts. You really should be doing one. So when the framework agreement was came up last year, like I just asked Bryson, I was like, should we have a quick pod? And he was like, absolutely. So that was my first one. I just set up a Zoom chat.
That's so cool, man.
Let's do it. I recorded with Taylor Gooch from the cab of my van on a building site.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. some of these like chats that you get, it just blows me away. But I'm hoping to start like talking to some more PJ Tour guys. Like I've been asking Billy Horschel to do one because he at the start was very vocal with anti-live, and I talk to him all the time. Like, and I just would love to like get someone like that on too, to sort of show that it's not prove again to fans that it's not as polarizing as people think. Golf is golf.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. And like I said, that's awesome. I love Colt. Colt, I've seen Colt go at it with other accounts on X or Twitter or whatever we call it. I'm not going to shout him out because I think me and you have an issue with the same account, which I'll discuss offline. But regardless, that's awesome, man. Like I said, if you guys haven't checked it out, make sure you check out Flushing It podcast. Great conversations. Are you going to get Bryson on for the U.S. Open recap? Obviously, if you guys you have some sort of relationship there, would that be something that you're looking to do, or what does that look like?
I'd love to have Bryson on, but I mean, he's got so many media.
Yeah, he's busy as hell right now, man.
It's kind of a bit pointless. I'll let the big guys do it, and maybe have a chat a bit later in the year, and because I want to ask him things which he needs to kind of let this all settle in. It's all a bit new, and I've asked him a couple of times, like, have you thought about the historical context of what you've achieved? And he's like, it hasn't really sunk in yet, man. Just, I think, give him a few weeks, let him appreciate what he has achieved. And then have a chat might be fun. So I don't know if he'll do it or not, but I'm certainly going to ask him.
Hell yeah, man. Well, good luck. I'll definitely listen to it if you get it. Obviously, he's the most popular man in golf right now, man. It's crazy how a year and a half, 2 years ago, he was hated, right? He was the villain from the PGA Tour. Now he goes to LIV. And one of the things that I don't think people talk about enough is, like, Bryson going to LIV was probably the best thing for him. At the time when he got ripped, right? When he left, like, he got ripped, like, just like everybody else, right? But now, like, I don't know if it's the people in America. I mean, obviously I watch LIV, but a lot of the media here obviously at least claim it doesn't watch it. But the transition he's making, the transformation, YouTube, like golf YouTube has helped him a ton. I'm big into golf YouTube. I watch the good guys, Bob the Sports, all the big ones, But I just think him going to LIV might have been the best thing for him. He's obviously really popular now, and it's great to see the fans appreciate what he is, because I think genuinely he's always believed that he's changed the game, or he's going to change the game because of how smart he is. But like I said, I think him going to LIV was probably the best thing for his brand. And he's obviously the most popular man in golf right now. People can't get enough of him, so I love that.
Yeah, it's perfect for him and perfect for LIV too, because this exposure, like nobody could give the PR for LIV Golf, which he's going to do now. He's the Open champion.
Right.
So, I mean, I think they understand and appreciate that, and he also does, because people might say that I don't think I've seen anyone say he's not into LIV, because he is, but people were saying that maybe he didn't want to play this week. But I spoke to him like the day after, and he was like, I can't wait to get to that.
I bet.
So he's, it is perfect for him. But what's happened, I think, with Bryson is that it's given him, before, like this, Phil Mickelson was talking about the media rights and how like you couldn't do your own stuff. This has given Bryson a platform that he can do and say things without it being editorialized by journalists and sports writers. Yeah. So when they ask him for a clip and they ask him something about COVID, and then they write up some like hit piece on him, like he doesn't like that. And that's like, I understand that, and it makes him look in a bad light. But now he can do all of his content himself. He can pick and choose which interviews he does, and just go and be like, well, this is me. This is what it is, and it's authentic. And what you're seeing now is the genuine Bryson.
Yeah, and he gets it, man. Like, he's on, like I said, YouTube golf is huge, especially for the younger demographic. And I think one thing that LIV has done really, really well, and not only for him itself, but you see guys like Sergio Garcia, even Phil Mickelson now venturing into YouTube. When you're on the PGA Tour, you obviously, and that's the thing Phil talked about, right? You don't own your own content, right? You have to get their permission to use your content from them. LIV has given these guys an ability to grow their brand, and I think it's very smart for LIV. They see the growth and possibilities on YouTube. Like I said, the good guys have over 1.5 million subscribers. They just did a tournament here in Indiana, not far from where I'm from, Michigan. Of course, that I've played in French Lick, and there's just the possibility is endless there. And you can see Bryson really leading into it. He collabs with Grant, with Garrett, all these big guys. And now I saw Grant was in Nashville. He touched the U.S. Open trophy. So there's endless possibilities, and I think something that's LIV has done super well. Not to get off too much of a tangent about Bryson, I want to move into the U.S. Open stuff. Obviously, fresh off the U.S. Open, like I said, I just did the interview with Willie. He had some great stuff on it. But let's hear your thoughts. Did you catch a ton of it? Obviously, I know you're about 5 hours ahead of us here in Eastern time. But let's hear your overall thoughts on just the week itself.
I've always one of the best majors that I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Just the way Pinehurst sets up is fantastic, because it had that element of uncertainty. Like if you hit a bad shot, it was, Bryson got away with a lot on Sunday, but there was always that like risk element of what's he going to end up with. And then it showed its strength in the 18th hole. And I think that's what Pinehurst did really well with, you had to know where to put it in the right spots just to guarantee that you're in the right positions. Yeah, and if you were slightly off by even a few inches, sometimes you could end up in a horrendous spot, like what happened to Rory. I think it was the fifth on Sunday. And I just thought that, obviously the competition was fantastic, but you have some great leaderboards at other golf courses. I think Pinehurst sort of helped to make that into the spectacle that it was.
Yeah, you had to be so precise over there, man. Like I just listened to an interview this morning of Scotty, the number one player in the world, who's dominating the PGA Tour right now, essentially saying like the misses were like he was struggling with because he couldn't miss it, right? He didn't know what was off the fairway. He couldn't make committed swings because he didn't know what his lies were going to end up in that white area, the native area, whatever they call it, which is crazy to think that the number one player in the world could make committed swings. How the heck are we as average golfers supposed to commit it?
Exactly.
But yeah, so I'm curious your opinion. Obviously, like you said, you probably lean towards the live side, which is fine. But I'm curious your opinion on this. How do you feel? Was it more Bryson winning or Rory? I don't want to use the C word, but Rory kind of choking it away on Sunday.
Well, I mean, I highlighted it straight away on X that
you did. I meant to call that out too.
Yeah,
you bumped it.
I mean, he went 2 shots ahead, and when he was walking down the fairway in the next hole, you could see it was like he'd seen a ghost. I think the moment got the better of him, and he immediately started pulling his shots, which is what happens when you get a bit tight and you're trying to steer it into the clubhouse.
Yep.
He was holding onto it. He was hitting it left. That shot into the par 3, which he hit long left, was the worst spot you could be on that hole. He knows that. But that's a nervous swing there. He kind of loosened it up a little bit coming in, but his putter was then showing his nerves. Like he missed that 2.5 footer straight up the hill, which he doesn't miss. He's 100% make rate this year.
And 497, 497.
Because it's now fully in his head. Like this is now. I mean, this isn't. Luke Helvey said this on my podcast, but this isn't a monkey on Rory's back. It's fucking Godzilla. How is he going to get rid of that thing? I don't know how he comes back from this. I really don't.
I think he's gonna. This is a hot take. I think he wins the Open, man. I think it doesn't have redemption story like this. Maybe I'll buy into it. I'm not a huge Rory guy. Like I'm a Tiger guy. I grew up watching Tiger. Like I love Rory. I love his swing, but he's not like one of my favorite players or anything. I love him. I respect him, but I think he'll come back and win the Open. I think you look at it like one of the other major big heartbreaks. Obviously, you can name them, right? The last 10 years, the Cam Smith, the LACC, but going back to like way early on at Augusta, 2011, shot 80, comes back and decimates the field at Congressional. I mean, he's a Terminator, man. He played so well with the exception of like 3 holes. Like that shot in 5 wasn't even that bad of a shot when he got that, ended up in a footprint. It's just a bad break. But like you said, he started to swing it, guide it on that par 3. He hit 7 iron. I know I listened to Smiley. That was 8 iron all day for him. That's just, like you said, a nervy swing where he's maybe questioning himself. But I hope he gets one, man. I think he's too good to not get at least 1 or 2 more. Early on in his career, I think he maybe was going to end at 10. Now I think he's lucky to get to 6, maybe 8 if he really goes on a tear. But, I mean, at the end of the day, like, Bryson hit that bunker shot, but I talked about it the other day. It wasn't just a bunker shot. Like, you look at the shot he hit in the 17, 8 iron from 220. That's a beast of a par 3. Pulls 8 iron, flags it. 16 is a 550-yard par 4. That's a par 5 for anyone who's not at the U.S. Open. Goes driver pitching wedge, flags it, leaves it putt, dead in the heart, 2 feet short. You saw the shot he hit on 13 when he drove the green. I think that's really when Rory got into his head. When he saw Bryson hit that 3-wood or 5-wood or whatever club it is on 13, drove the green. And one of the things I don't think the TV coverage it enough was show like how close the course was and look like Bryson and could see everything what Rory was doing and vice versa. And I think, like you said, that played into Rory's head a little bit. And I do Twitter spaces every week with Red. I know you know Red Harrington. He said that like you could see Rory like look back and like you said, he'd almost saw a ghost, which was really cool.
But he's actually, people, just quickly as well, when you talk about Rory and Bryson, it hasn't been mentioned yet. I might have to bring it up. Rory changed his game because of how Bryson won the US Open in 2021. So he might already have a battle there with Bryson in his head anyway. That he sees this guy coming, which he maybe in his head already thinks is, like I don't know. I was going to use the word more of an alpha than him, but I don't know if that's the appropriate word. But he might already have something in the back of his head subconsciously about Bryson. And like you say, when he looks back and sees him like hit that shot into the par 4, which just was perfect, he might already be like, "Oh God, yeah, this guy's coming."
Yeah,
it could be, you never know, like the things that are in the back of his head. But the other thing as well is that when people get down low, like losing at the Open, people might have thought was the bottom for Rory when Cam Smith beat him and shot the back nine of 30, and people looked at that and thought it can't get any worse. Well, this is worse.
This is the worst of it.
If this is the bottom, he might completely relieve himself of all the pressures now. And then, like you say, he goes to Troon and he has like a weight off his back where he's like, well, whatever. What's the worst that can happen? Like, I literally broke away.
It can't get any worse.
4 weeks ago, so who cares? And he might literally go and win, because that's what happened after the Masters in 2011 as well. Yeah. He lost a 4-shot lead, and then he won the US Open, the following major. And it could happen like that for him. You never know.
Yeah, the only reason I remember that because I was lucky enough to go to Augusta, the towel over here. I went with my dad in 2011, the year Schwartzel won. That's the only reason why I remember it. Like I said, Rory shot 80, and it's been rough ever since, man. Anyway, here's a question, and I'm genuinely curious your thoughts on this because I know how much you're a Bryson guy and you have a good relationship. I don't necessarily agree with this take, but I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Bryson is currently the number one best player in the world right now after the U.S. Open?
I don't think he is. No, I don't see how you can. His form in Live hasn't been good enough, and obviously he's been the best major player this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
But he also won last week he didn't have his A game last week.
No.
And I think people need to kind of appreciate that, like, the way he drove it is not what Bryson does on Sunday. He doesn't spray it all over the planet anymore. He hits it straight, and he's wasn't happy about that. He changed his drive ahead just before he went out. Yeah, and he's got a new driver in the works. I mean, I honestly think that he's got another level, and he might not be the best player in the world right now, but he will. And just be ready for that. Yeah.
So that's and like you said, he which is wild that he bombs it. Obviously, he's hitting it 30-40 by everybody, but like you said, that wide miss, and he showed a little bit on Sunday. But at the end of the day, it's a Sunday at the U.S. Open. You're not going to have your best stuff, and he won without his best stuff, like you said. But the thing that amazes me is he hits a draw, which for somebody who, I mean, I hit it I hit it pretty far, not anything like Bryson, but I went I went away from a draw to a fade because I couldn't control that draw. Like, if that draw gets going too far left, you can't control it. Like you said, it's too much overspin. The fact that he hits it so fucking straight and so far with a draw, I think it's the most impressive thing in its own right, because not many guys hit a draw anymore. I think there's like 2 or 3 who famously hit it right to left. A lot of the guys gone to a cut. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he's the best player in the world. In fact, I think it's almost lunacy to say it. I've seen some live bots go off on it. He's a top 3 player in the world. There's no doubt. And anyone who's doubted that, we don't want to go down the OWGR rabbit hole, right? That's a whole different day. That shit is obviously corrupt. No one in their right mind believed that he was the 200th best golfer or whatever. But like you said, he hasn't won on Live this year, and I don't know if a lot of people realize that. Obviously, his team has done well. They won the team championship last year. He's competed in a couple tournaments this year, but he hasn't really put a full 3 rounds together on Live, which is shocking because he's played so well in the majors, right? He's done well at Augusta, played well, obviously, at the PGA, and now he's obviously won. But he hasn't been the best form. I think it's Scotty by not a relatively big margin, just because he's so good at everything. Then there's Bryson, Xander, Rory, and then I think there's a pretty big gap between them and then everybody else. But Bryson is still a top 5 player in the world. There's no doubt. I think it's a little crazy to say the guy's won 1 time in 8 months. And yes, it was a major, but Scotty's he's too good right now. And that's my opinion. It has nothing to do with PGA Live. I just think Scotty's too good. That's kind of.
No, I totally agree. The other thing with Bryson is that he, again, not enough has been made about this, to be honest. He was in danger of not having access to major championships after
next year. Yep.
That was in his head because he knew. I asked him earlier this year, what are you going to do if you don't get into the 2020 Masters? And he said, I'm going to win one. And I was like, what do you mean? Awesome, well, I'm going to win one, and then I'll get into the Masters. I was like, I mean, but what if you don't? He's like, that's all I care about. I'm going to win a major. So he was so focused on them that maybe his Live, stuff had slightly been preparation in a way.
Yeah.
For the majors, like it is for everyone else at PGA Tour events. So I think he might maybe now, he could go out and win a string of them on Live. Who knows? But I don't think it'll be this week, all right? I don't think it'll be this week.
No, this week is tough, man. Yeah, this week is tough. Yeah, no, and I know he had the 5-year exemption from the 2020 U.S. Open, but obviously with OWGR and the way he's not getting points on Live, that a lot of people don't know that he was through. I think it was through next year he was out of exemptions for the 5-year exemption, and that's a lot of guys on Live. Like Cam Smith obviously is doing it. Phil has his, Phil just famously, I think this was his last U.S. Open, unless he gets a special exemption because he's got the Kiowa win. But yeah, I love Bryson. I think it's great for what he's done in the game. Not to transition, like I said, I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent. We could talk about it all day. One thing that's crazy, I think that he's done is like how he's winning majors. And I know you've posted a ton. He's doing videos of like persimmon clubs, shooting 35, doing stuff with like old balls and like doing these collabs. And he's out here, beating fields, winning major championships. Good for him. If that's what it takes to do major prep, hell, maybe more guys will start doing YouTube. Let's transition into a little bit about the live event this week. I know you like I said, you obviously lean towards live, which is great. Have you done any like research on the course? I haven't done it too much into it, but I'm just curious. Have you done any research on the Nashville? I know I've never heard of the course because there's not a ton of stops there, but have you done any research on the Live Golf Nashville course?
I have not done much about the Grove. I know it looks great, and obviously a lot of top, some famous people play there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly don't know too much about it. So
okay. So what are your thoughts on the Live schedule this year? Obviously, some new courses. This being a new event, Houston being a new event. What are your thoughts on the Live schedule this year? Do you think it's been better, or I would say I don't want to say worse, but do you think it's better, or let's say worse than last year?
I don't really understand like why they have the big like summer off-season thing. If it was to give a break for the transfer window and then there was no move, I don't really get that. But I mean, the week before a major, the week after a major, it just seems a bit crazy. So they've gone, the guys that are in it have jumped 3 in a row, and they just come off. They've just been beat up at Pinehurst. I don't think anyone wants to play this week. So I don't really understand it, to be honest. But they're still in it. They're still teething, aren't they? So they've got a lot to learn and a lot to sort of adapt going forwards.
Yeah, what's what's been your favorite course that you've seen so far? Is it one of the international ones, or I guess are you more you like the U.S. Open or not the U.S. courses over here?
Valderrama, 100%.
Valderrama, yeah, man, that was a big one. Not a lot of people realize that, but that was a big domino, and I'm really excited to see Rahm go back. I really hope that's when he gets his first one. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Rahm won this week because he's been off for 2 weeks, obviously with the foot injury or toe, whatever, the infection. But I wouldn't be shocked if he got done this week. But I'd love to see him win at Valderrama. That would be huge for him, and not a lot of people would realize. He'd probably get made fun of on social media from like the no laying up guys. But at the end of the day, it would be a huge win for him at Valderrama.
It would be massive. I want to go to that one, but I'm not sure if I'm going to go. But I mean, the crowd's got to be insane. You've got
for sure
young David Pooch on the way up. You've got obviously Rahm, Sergio's playing good golf. I mean, who's the other? Eugenio, obviously. Like they're just gonna they're gonna show out for that one. It's gonna be a fantastic event. That.
Yeah, and I've got some questions about the younger talent on Live, but before I do that, what are your thoughts? Like, what does the landscape for Live look like in the future? Like, have you heard anything about what next year's schedule looks like? Obviously, we have this framework agreement. We don't know when the hell that's going to get done, but I guess, do you know anything, or I guess share your thoughts on or opinions on like what the Live landscape looks like for the future?
It's a tough one to call, but this is all just conjecture from me because nobody knows anything definitive. So you get little snippets of information and things that you can then draw your own conclusions on. Like, say, Liv have just set up a massive new head office in New York. So they wouldn't have done that if they had plans to like disappear, right? So I have also heard that Liv plans to have 9 events internationally next year because I got up there on social media and said that they're having half in the States and they talk about themselves being a global tour. And then somebody immediately pushed back and said next year will be 9. So that'll be,
cool.
I mean, that'll be interesting if if that's getting more towards the global schedule. What I do see, maybe not Live based, but the Saudi International, I believe, in about 5 to 10 years, could be one of the biggest events on the planet for golf because they've moved this now to the spot that they originally wanted it, and it's going to be in December. So it's going to be the Asian Tour, like Tour Championship, kind of Players Championship mix. It's also going to be the International Series last event. And I believe that pretty much every Live player will be there for that. Plus, they also have the option to invite some PGA Tour guys because it's opposite Tiger's event. So they don't have to worry too much about getting a pass and getting their media rights signed off by the PGA Tour for that one. You can see what they're trying to do to have like a big end of season, massive golf event in Saudi. And I think that's just going to keep growing over the next few years.
Yeah, and a lot of guys already play on that event, right? I think Fleetwood, Rory's played in it. I think if it's the same, I know they do a few in Dubai.
Rory's never done it. Rory's never done it, but Cam Young, loads of them have. Shane Lowry.
Okay.
Xander.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome, man. Like, well, let's hope everything. Let's just hope everything comes together at this point. But let's touch a little bit about the younger guys. Obviously, the PGA Tour, we have Ludwig and a couple other young. Gordon Sargent famously pounds the ball, but I don't think people talk enough about what Liv has done for the younger players. You've obviously interviewed Chikara, qualified for the U.S. Open, a really good amateur player. Won Liv, I think Bangkok, like first season. Right. You got Caleb Surratt. You've got David Puig. You got a ton of these young guys. Talk to me a little bit about, in what your opinion, what Liv has done for those guys' careers.
Well, the perfect example is David Pooch, he joined Live and he was ranked nearly 3,000th in the world.
Yeah.
And he's currently just outside the top 100. He's qualified for the Olympics team and he's qualified for the Open. So he'll be in 3 of the 4 majors this year.
Yeah.
Just via going to Live. So it is possible to do that. But the most important thing is how he's being mentored, like directly by Sergio Garcia.
Yeah.
And I witnessed that for myself in Macau. And like Pooch, he had a terrible Saturday and he wasn't happy with how he played. And I caught him with Sergio afterwards and they're having a conversation. And Sergio just basically put his arm around his shoulder and said, "You're still thinking about how you played, aren't you, man?" And he was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Don't worry about it. Just go out tomorrow and tear it up." And David kind of looked at him and he's like, You'll shoot like 65 tomorrow." And then he went out and he was a couple under front nine. He saw Sergio on the adjoining tee, which I think was 13 when David was on 10. And Sergio looked over and was like, "How's it going, David?" He was like, "I'm 2 under." And he was like, "Let's go, Poochie, let's go."
Yeah.
And he watched him hit his shot and he smoked it up the middle. He goes, "Let's go, Poochie, make eagle." And he made eagle. And then he shot like a 30 back nine to get into a playoff. And that's the kind of thing that you see directly how the team aspect helps them. And it's got a lot of shit and people take the piss out of the team thing. But for the young like Caleb Surratt, for Eugenio and David Pooch and players like that, it's just exceptional. They've been coached by some of the best players in the world and then competing against them directly.
Yeah.
Like it's just such a good scenario, I think, for these guys to come up straight from college to be into that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll get into it in a minute. Like I like the team stuff. I think it's really, really cool what, like you said, what they're doing for the young guys. Like being able to have mentors like John Rahm, DJ, Brooks, right, Sergio, all these guys who have been around the block a few times. For me, I play golf for individual. I like the team stuff. I think it's great when the drama kind of comes up. Like the team playoff in Adelaide was awesome. What I don't love about the team stuff is sometimes it feels forced. Like Thursday, they're telling us like who's winning, but that's just my opinion. Like I said, I still watch. I like it if it's there, but I don't. That's not something I'm watching it for. But that's okay. It doesn't have to be for everybody. But it's still cool to hear stories like that and to hear like a lot of this stuff is like, well, these guys don't care, right? The team stuff doesn't care, but clearly they do, right? Sergio obviously cares about these young guys, mentoring them for the game, and like I think that's a lot of people in the States don't see, right? They don't see the global, right? The global game of what the game means to these guys and these other, like Spain, wherever. I know you mentioned the gentleman, I forget his name, TK from, I'll butcher his last name. Yeah. But like what they're, no chance I'm saying that.
Good luck with that one.
But it's cool, man. It's cool. So funny story. I don't know. I'm assuming you're familiar with James Pyatt, played on the High Flyers. He's from where I'm from. He plays he practices at the same course I practice at when he's here in Michigan. And I know he's done really well. Obviously, he got relegated. It is what it is. He made a bag. Happy for him. But he has talked about it, and we have friends of friends who he got mentioned by Phil Mickelson. Like, how cool is that? Like, even if you never win again, like you won the USA, you spent 2 years traveling, playing golf with like Phil Mickelson, Brooks. Like that's got to be just. As somebody who's jealous, like that's just got to be the coolest experience, man. And like I said, the team stuff may not be for me, but it's still cool to hear stories like that. Okay, last one about Live Golf Nashville, then I'll do some rap first, and I'll let you get out of here, man. Thank you so much for the time. Who do you like this week? Who's your team pick? And let's get an individual pick.
Well, you basically called it. I think John Rahm might win this week. He's due. He's had a week off to sort of, chill out with get his foot recovered, and I think he's going to be hungry as well. Sitting watching the US Open at home. I think that maybe will tick something over in his head, and I think he's going to come out firing.
Oh yeah! So, team pick.
Team pick. Good question. Oh God, I've got no idea. You were saying about the team format. I don't actually really like the team format either. So I wish they just do it more head-to-head match play. But I do get why it's this way, but I'm not too keen on it. I don't really pay a lot of attention to.
Fair enough. Yeah, exactly. Fair enough.
It's a hard call. I don't know.
Then you don't gotta give one. You don't gotta give one. If you just just say Torquay. They're probably in the top 5 of them.
Yeah, let's say, because Crushers, obviously, they're going to be inspired by Bryson. They've just taken John Catlin on as well. I think he'd like to win. So let's say Crushers win the team and Rahm wins the individual.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. When John Catlin crushing on the Asian Tour, I know him and Pooch had a playoff. Anyway, all right, let's do the rapid fires, and I'll let you go, man. Like I said, thank you so much for the time. Right. So let's go. What's your favorite golf course? And some people may not know, but I don't care. I'm still curious.
The Old Course.
The Old Course, so you've played it. That's sweet. Okay. Now, this might be the answer to the same question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's the most prestigious course that you've played?
I guess prestigious is the Old Course, but like exclusive is I played Queenwood. That's like virtually impossible to get on. So
and just for the people, you played golf somewhat professionally? Is that correct? When you were in growing up,
So when I was a county player when I was a junior. I turned pro. I worked in the shop for a bit, like doing PJ stuff. Didn't like that, so I played mini tours for a couple of years. Got injured.
Cool.
Didn't play for about decades, and I've come back. I play scratch. So
cool. Okay, so I was gonna say, how's your game? So it sounds like you're a scratch player. Same with me. It's good, but we're not nearly as good as other people. But still really hard to be a scratch golfer.
Yeah.
Okay, who's your favorite golfer?
Bryson.
Bryson. Okay. What clubs do you play right now? What's in the bag?
I've got. I get all my clubs from my brother because I don't play a lot of golf now. He just gives me all his hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
But I think they're TaylorMade's, but I don't know what model they are. I've got honestly no idea. I've still got the same putter. I've got this Ping. It's a Ping Answer, the original one.
Answer? The OG
I've
one.
Had it for 20 odd years.
Yeah.
I've never even re-gripped it.
Yeah, that's awesome. My dad has the same putter. I'm actually gonna get him a new putter here this summer. I'm gonna take him down to the Sub 70 facility. I know Ben does a lot of great work with Sub 70 over in the UK. But okay, what is the coolest golf moment in your life? Doesn't have to be playing, could be anything.
Playing the old course with my dad for his 60th birthday. That was just obviously exceptional itself.
Oh, that's sweet, man.
Yeah, I mean, just the best thing ever. Getting the photo out there on the first tee and on the bridge and everything was exceptional. So that's definitely
man. I can respect that. My dad got me into the game. He's the reason I do it. He's a big supporter of my show. I constantly get texts from my dad. I want to take him somewhere cool. I'd love to be Pebble or like somewhere over here. Ideally, my dream trip is to go across to England and play a ton of golf. I haven't got the opportunity to do it yet, but I can resonate with that, man. I love my dad. He's my hero. He's the reason I got in the game. So that's awesome. Lowest golf round.
This sounds like make me sound like a right dick. When I was playing a lot, I broke 60 a couple of times around my home.
Damn. Okay. Hell yeah, dude.
Got a couple of course records as well. So yeah.
That's sweet. That's awesome, dude. All right, favorite. This is an interesting one, but favorite podcast.
God, that's a really good question. I don't know if I have a favorite, but there's a bunch which I listen to a lot. So
yeah.
It's a new one actually. I don't know if anyone would ever listen to it, but I've been starting listening to an Australian one with Nico Hearn and Mark Allen. That's quite interesting. So it's to an international voice because a lot of them are American, right?
Yeah.
So that's been good fun. So,
Nico Hearn's a lefty, right? Put on tour for a while. Okay.
Yeah, he beat Tyler Wood in the match play.
Yes, I remember that.
And he just brings it up all the time on the podcast.
That's awesome. That's awesome, dude. I had, like I said, I had Willie on. He had said that he was favored one time in a matchup over Tiger Woods. He's like, that's my famous calling card. That's so cool. But that's got to be awesome. Okay, last one, and I will let you go. How many hole-in-ones do you have, if any?
I've had 7, but I haven't had one for about 12 years. So
yeah, that's wild, dude. I have 0. I've seen like 6. Willie had 20, which I know Mickelson is famous and said, yeah, I know. That's what I said. And he A17 at Sawgrass, which is really cool. Okay, man.
Do you know what? The more you play golf, the more chance you have of making one.
Yeah.
So it literally is that, because when I was playing every day, playing golf 2 or 3 times, a day sometimes, you have more chance of making one. So you'd rapid fire them off. You'd make 3 in a year, and you'd be like, oh, holding ones are easy, but they're not.
Yeah. Well, you think like Bryson. I think Bryson only has 2 or 1. He aced 16 at the Masters, and but you get guys who haven't had any, which is wild. But then you get pros who have 20, 21, and for them it's obviously a lot easier because they don't fucking miss. They're hitting it at the target. I've seen 5, man. But it's
someone
cool.
has to fact check this, but I've got a feeling that Seve might not have made a hole in one in his professional career,
which is wild.
I believe.
Which is wild.
I'm not sure, but yeah, I think that's true.
Cool. All right, man. Well, that's all I had for you. I know we're kind of right at the, what we had talked about. But like I said, guys, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you follow, like I said, Flushing It Golf on X, on Instagram. And he's got a really good podcast, the Flushing It Golf podcast. Got a ton of great listeners. Make sure you follow. Tom, thanks for the time, man. I had a blast talking to you. And like I said, thank you for coming on the Scratch Golf Show.
Thanks, Marco. It's been emotional.
Yeah, no worries, man. If you guys made it this far in the interview, great. Thank you for watching until the end. Like I said, we had a great conversation with Tom today. He was a really great guest for us. He's done great work on the Flushing Golf podcast, so make sure you listen to it. A big week for us guys here in Michigan. We have the Rocket Mortgage Classics, my hometown event. So we're going to be boots on the ground a couple days this week. We've got a couple of really good interviews lined up, hopefully for you guys. So make sure you subscribe. Notifications turned on. Once again, from our last video, we're doing our first giveaway at 200 YouTube subscribers. So like I said, if you guys love the content, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the content we got from the Rocket Mortgage this week. Have a good one, guys. Thanks.